June 1941. The eastern horizon burns with the promise of conquest. For the men of Germany's 4th Panzer Division, victory is not a question. It is an inevitability. They have crushed Poland, humbled France, and driven the British into the sea. Now they turn their guns east, toward a foe they believe is already broken. But in the shadows of their confidence, fate is sharpening its blade. At dawn on June 22nd, the world's most feared armored force rolls forward. The 4th Panzer Division, hardened veterans of blitzkrieg, masters of mechanized warfare, lead the charge into the Soviet Union. Their orders are simple: smash through the enemy's defenses, encircle their armies, and deliver Moscow to the Führer before the leaves turn. No one doubts them. No one should. Hitler's blitzkrieg has rewritten the rules of war. Poland fell in weeks. France collapsed in days. Now, the unstoppable 4th Panzer turns its sights on Stalin's empire, a colossus they believe is rotting from within. But beneath the cheers of victory, a storm is gathering. And when it breaks, it will shatter the myth of German invincibility. In Berlin, the high command is certain. Soviet tanks are obsolete. Their air force is a joke. Their soldiers will flee at the first sight of German steel. The war in the East will be over before the snows fall. But confidence is a fragile thing, and the men who plan this war have already made their first fatal mistake: underestimating the enemy. The Germans have misjudged 3 things: the sheer numbers of the Red Army, the merciless bite of the Russian winter, and the arrogance that blinds them to the truth. The Soviet Union is not Poland. It is not France. It is a beast that will not die quietly. The advance begins as expected. Soviet border guards are swept aside. Villages fall without a fight. The 4th Panzer moves like a knife through butter, their radios crackling with reports of easy victories. But in the forests ahead, something stirs, something the Germans did not anticipate. The Soviets are waiting. Not in the open, where German guns can shred them. Not in the towns, where Luftwaffe bombers can turn them to ash. But in the forests, in the swamps, where the land itself becomes a weapon. And when the trap is sprung, the 4th Panzer will learn the cost of their arrogance. The ambush is sudden, brutal. The Germans have no time to react. Soviet shells tear through their ranks, their armor piercing the thin hides of Panzer IIIs like paper. The radio channels explode with screams. Contact! Heavy armor! The 4th Panzer's confidence shatters in an instant. The Germans fire back, but their shells bounce. The T-34's sloped armor deflects their best shots. Their guns, so lethal in the West, are useless here. The Soviets have built a tank that outclasses them in every way. And as the 4th Panzer's losses mount, the truth becomes clear. This is not the war they were promised. By the 3rd day, the 4th Panzer Division is a shadow of itself. Their tanks are wrecks. Their crews are shattered. The Soviet counterattack has torn through them like a scythe. In Berlin, the high command refuses to believe the reports, but the truth cannot be denied. The myth of blitzkrieg is dead, and the war in the East has only just begun. The Soviet infantry charged through smoke and fire, their silhouettes stark against burning wreckage. Molotov cocktails arced through the air, shattering against German armor. The 4th Panzer Division, Germany's finest, found itself swarmed by men armed with little more than gasoline and desperation. Crews abandoned their tanks only to be cut down in the open. The Red Army had learned how to fight panzers, and now They were making the Germans pay. In the rear, German high command dismissed the reports with arrogance. A local counterattack? Nothing more. Orders were clear: crush them and move on. But the men on the front lines knew better. The Soviets were not retreating. They were fighting back, with a ferocity no one had anticipated. As darkness fell, the 4th Panzer's situation grew dire. Tanks formed a defensive circle, crews scanning the shadows. Whispers spread. They're everywhere. The Soviets had vanished into the night, but their presence was felt in every rustle of the wind, every distant gunshot. The Germans were no longer hunters. They were the hunted. Then came the bombers. Soviet aircraft roared overhead, dropping flares that turned night into day. German positions were lit up like a stage, their every movement exposed. Crews cursed as shadows vanished, leaving them vulnerable to the unseen enemy lurking in the darkness. The cold was the final betrayal. German tanks, designed for Western Europe, were never meant for the Russian winter. Fuel lines froze, engines sputtered. Mechanics screamed in frustration as their machines failed them. The 4th Panzer was not just fighting the Red Army. It was fighting the land itself. Behind the lines, partisans struck. Supply convoys, already stretched thin, were ambushed and destroyed. Ammunition trucks erupted in fireballs, cutting off the 4th Panzer's resupply. Without fuel, without shells, the division was bleeding to death. The reports were damning. Fuel reserves, 12 hours. Ammunition, critical. The officer crumpled the paper in his fist, knowing the truth. The 4th Panzer was doomed. Not by enemy fire, but by the sheer weight of its own failures. Soviet propaganda leaflets drifted down from the sky, their message clear. Surrender. Winter is coming. The words were a taunt, a promise. The 4th Panzer had no answer. Inside the tanks, arguments raged. "We can't retreat," one crewman yelled. "We can't fight," another shot back. The division was fracturing, its discipline unraveling under the weight of defeat. The end came with a scream. Soviet artillery shells rained down, their explosions tearing through the German lines. A Panzer III took a direct hit, its turret ripped from its hull and hurled into the sky. In 72 hours, the 4th Panzer Division, Germany's finest armored unit, had been reduced to wreckage. The myth of invincibility was shattered, and the war in the East would never be the same. The Soviet commander adjusted his binoculars, watching the German panzers struggle through the mud. "They thought we were weak," he muttered. "Now they know." The trap was set. The 4th Panzer Division, Hitler's elite armored fist, was about to be crushed. June 1944, Eastern Front. The 4th Panzer Division, veteran of countless victories, advanced toward the Soviet lines. Their mission? Break through and encircle the Red Army. But the Soviets had learned. They had adapted, and they were waiting. German commanders assumed their panzers would slice through Soviet defenses as they always had. Speed, firepower, and experience were on their side. But they underestimated Soviet resilience, their improved tactics, and the sheer weight of their counterattack. The Soviets struck with overwhelming force. T-34s swarmed the flanks, cutting off escape routes. Artillery pounded the German positions. The once mighty panzers were trapped, their supply lines severed, their crews exhausted. By the third day, the division was in ruins. Tanks burned in the fields. Wounded soldiers lay in trenches, their whispers lost in the gunfire. The radio crackled with desperate pleas. "Fall back to the river! Fall back!" But the Soviets were already there. The last Panzer fired its final shell. The engine sputtered, died. The crew climbed out, hands raised. A single shot rang out. The division was no more. The final report arrived at 0430 hours. 4th Panzer Division destroyed. In 72 hours, Germany's finest armored brigade had been erased. The Red Army advanced, their victory complete. The 4th Panzer's destruction proved that even elite forces could be broken. The Soviets had turned the tide. The war would never be the same. And the myth of German invincibility. It died in those mud-choked fields. In the frozen wastes of the Eastern Front, the 4th Panzer Division rolled forward, their commanders certain of victory. The Wehrmacht had crushed all before them: Poland, France, the Balkans. Now they would break the Red Army. But the snow would drink their blood, and the myth of German invincibility would die in the cold. It was December 1941. Hitler's armies stood at the gates of Moscow. The 4th Panzer, Germany's elite armored fist, was to deliver the final blow. But the Red Army had other plans. The stakes? The survival of the Soviet Union and the fate of the war. German high command assumed the Soviets were broken, their tanks outdated, their men exhausted. The 4th Panzer's superior tactics and firepower would shatter any resistance. It seemed reasonable. After all, they had never failed before. But they underestimated Soviet resilience. The T-34's sloped armor deflected German shells. Its wide tracks gripped the snow. And the Red Army's numbers? Endless. The Germans had speed, but the Soviets had steel, and the will to fight to the last. The attack began. The 4th Panzer advanced, confident. Then, the Soviet counterattack. T-34s emerged from the blizzard, their guns roaring. German tanks burned. Crews froze in the snow. The once proud division faltered. In Berlin, Hitler screamed at his generals, "How could this happen?" The answer was simple. The 4th Panzer had met its match. The Soviets had not just halted them, they had destroyed them. 72 hours, 120 tanks lost, 3,000 men dead or captured. The 4th Panzer Division ceased to exist. The Eastern Front would never be the same. The myth of German invincibility was shattered. The Red Army had proven that the fascist war machine could bleed, could break. And the world took notice. In a Soviet dugout, a soldier wrote home, "We stopped them. The fascists will not pass." It was more than a letter. It was a promise. The 4th Panzer's defeat was not just a battle lost. It was the moment the tide of war turned, and the road to Berlin began.